Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in today for the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast. I have a very special guest, Cindy Schulson. Cindy is the founder of Marketing from Within. She shows coaches and consultants how to stand out in this noisy online world by marketing with heart versus hype. She brings a decade of marketing experience working for such companies as Coca-Cola and Visa, combined with a decade of online marketing to create a paradigm shift in how marketing can be done with integrity and heart. She's a creator of the Marketing with Heart journey, designed to simplify marketing while honoring your vision, value, and voice. And one of her greatest gifts is helping a client sort through their brain dump of ideas so they can find the golden nuggets that make them shine in their own unique way. Cindy, it's such a pleasure to have you on here today. I'm so looking forward to this call with you.
Thank you. And you read that so beautifully with your beautiful accent. It sounds even better.
Thank you so much. So Cindy, obviously you have a really great company now. You've worked for big businesses in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've got to this point in your business and what role your inner game, your mindset has played to get you to where you are now?
Yeah. So I was just one of these people who just whatever I set my mind to, I kind of did. That was I just never even questioned it for quite a long time. And I just always was kind of the mind that if I set an intention and I focused on it and I used my creativity and resourcefulness, I would make things happen. Until I became an entrepreneur, then it all changed. So that's when everything started changing. But I basically left corporate after having kids in my late 30s. And I just decided it was time to kind of reinvent myself and took a break and did very little. And then, the type A personality said, okay, what are we going to do now? And I discovered coaching and internet marketing and just kind of dove into both headfirst. That was in 2008. And that's when my mindset it was partly mindset and partly strategy that got in the way, because I was doing all these things and I was getting nowhere. And I just kind of took a step back and I finally realized that I had no strategic focus for what I was here. I didn't know who I was here to help or what I was here to help them with and all of that. But it was the first time that I started doubting myself, like, why am I working for a year and a half and getting absolutely nowhere and taking time away from my children? I had, my youngest was in preschool at the time. And it really shook me to my core of like, can I even do this? Do I have what it takes? And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, like my dad, my grandfather, my mom, my brother, everybody's an entrepreneur. And so I was just kind of like, what can I not cut it? And I realized that I had to understand, I had to get some help, right? And I realized that I had to also take a step back strategically and from a mindset perspective and understand what was going on. So I really do. I know you teach mindset, I teach strategy, and I really believe we have to have a combination of both of these things. But I realized that I wasn't honoring myself. And this is where it connects between the strategy and the mindset. So let me just explain really briefly, is that I had come into my business with a decade of experience that I was not honoring in my business. It was like I said, that was then, this is now. And I didn't leverage everything I brought into my business. I wasn't honoring the value that I brought into my business. But it also goes to the mindset piece, because I wasn't honoring myself. I wasn't honoring who I am and what I have to offer. And so the two started kind of playing together in a very not nice way, if you understand what I mean.
Yes.
Like I wasn't honoring my value. And that affected me strategically, but it also affected me from a mindset perspective, that I started questioning my value.
This is a huge, huge piece of the puzzle for so many entrepreneurs. because they can have a very successful previous life. And as you said, as soon as they come into their business, they throw all of that out of the window and think they have to start from scratch. But that's not the case, is it?
No, not at all. And so what I've learned, the key is to figure out what are your strengths and your experiences and apply them in a way that you're passionate about.
Mm.
And that's where that digging for the golden nuggets comes in a lot, because it really comes down to finding your niche is what it is. But everybody thinks that your niche is an outside in job. And for me, it's an inside out job. And by that, I mean, it starts by looking within you at the solution that you're here to provide based on what you want to do and what your experiences and strengths are. So you and I come at it from a very similar approach. I come at marketing from an inside out approach in terms of honoring you, and you come at it from an inside out approach too, in terms of really digging into the mindset part of that. So they're very complementary.
Absolutely. And so could you share your experience of how you came to honor your value and how you started connecting the dots, as it were? Because I'm imagining that when you started connecting the dots, suddenly your business started becoming much more successful.
It did. So what I did, it was almost like an experiment, and I do have sort of that adventurous kind. I've lived and worked in 5 countries. I've had like an adventurous spirit, and I think that serves me in my business, to not have to make it perfect, but just experiment. So I put together like this little report that I had put together for myself on how to find your niche. And I put it up on a landing page. I didn't even have a website yet. And within a year and a half, I had more people on my list than I had, within a few weeks, I had more people on my list than I had had in the entire year and a half before that. And so that led to my first business, Attract Your Niche. And I started attracting clients and working with clients, but then I had another big mindset shift as well, and that I wasn't honoring myself at an even deeper level. So I was honoring my value, but I wasn't honoring my voice. And by that, I mean that, again, in marketing, we're taught to listen to what other people want to hear. Like, think about what your ideal client wants to hear. And what I realized is that for me to be operating in true integrity and to really stand out as well in this online world, I had to honor not just what people want to hear, but what I want to say. And that's when I started developing a messaging platform for myself. Ironically, I did this for my clients in corporate for many years, but I did it for myself as well. And I started helping people and myself develop a core message that's the heart of your brand, which is really what you stand for in your business. And really understanding that marketing is really about sharing your true message that incorporates what people want to hear, but also what you want to say. And it's this blend of the two. So that's when I started attracting people who didn't just value what I do, but who I am and what I stand for. And that's when things became really fun.
Yes, and this is so important because there's such a, I would almost say you're told again and again by, what you read online, by business coaches, that what does your ideal client want and what's their problem, and supply the solution to their problem. Right. But it has to be something that you're passionate about yourself. Otherwise, if you don't have that passion, you're not going to come across as truly in love with your service.
Yes, and it's passion, and it's also experience. And here's the irony. I worked in strategic communications for all those years, and not once did I even think about how to leverage that in my business. And it's also a passion for me. But I looked at it and I said, well, I did that in corporate. I don't like corporate. So I just kind of put it all together in one big bundle. And that's such a big mistake. So it's honoring the value that I bring and honoring what I want to say, honoring my voice. And it's this marriage, it's kind of those Venn diagrams between, what do people want and what do they want to hear? But what do you want to offer and what do you have to say? And we've got to fit all these pieces together so that you're connecting with your ideal clients, but you're also being true to yourself.
Yes, and that is the key, isn't it? And when you get all those pieces to meet in the center of that Venn diagram, there's suddenly the magic starts happening.
Yes.
What advice could you give to our listeners about how they could start to do this for themselves? So I know this is a big, meaty topic, And you won't have, you can't go into the detail of all that because it's the stuff that you teach to your clients. But how can they start? It's taking that step back as you did at that point when things weren't working, because taking that step back is so important, because we can be busy, doing, get to the end of the day and think, I haven't achieved anything. But it can be worth your time just taking that step back, not doing, but just being and really finding out what's not working for you. So what advice could you give around that?
Yeah, so my biggest advice on that is strategy comes before tactics. It has to come before tactics. And so if you're doing and getting nowhere, then we have to find, where are the holes in your bucket? Where are things leaking through? And sometimes it's truly just a mindset issue that they're struggling with, as you very well know, that they're not owning their value and all of that. And sometimes it's that we are getting into tactics before we have any strategy in place whatsoever. So if you're doing, the way I think about marketing is just sharing your message with the right people so they're inspired to take action. So if you know what your message is, who the right people are, and what action you want them to take, then marketing becomes a lot simpler. So we have to identify where is the hole in your bucket. And sometimes it's in your head. Not that we have holes in our head, but
Yes.
We've got to get all these pieces together.
Absolutely. And there seems to be so much to do and so much overwhelm for business owners. And there are so many strategies. And when you started 10, 11 years ago, it was more limited, wasn't it? The sort of strategies you could have. Perhaps it was more straightforward back then. And now there's such a huge variety. So how does a consultant, a coach, start trying to make sense of everything that's out there, and what would be a good strategy for them to pursue, what would play to their strengths, their skill set?
Yeah. So we talked about honoring your voice and what you want to say, honoring your value and what you bring to the table, but you also have to honor your vision. And this is something that I really had to learn, is that, my vision for what I want to create for my business doesn't have to be the vision of what somebody else wants me to do. And it certainly doesn't have to be the vision of whatever bright, shiny object somebody's trying to sell me. We can keep our businesses really simple and streamlined. And so when we're marketing our business, once we get the message and the right people and the action, then we can start, getting into the marketing activity. And we can choose to keep it very simple. So for me, I focus on just two things: speaking and relationships, usually with strategic partners. And that's it. And I let go of all the other noise. And so we build on our success. So we get down the foundational pieces, and then we can add the other fun elements, like I'm leading an online challenge or whatever other little bits I want to do. But those key pieces in place, get them nailed, do them well, and don't let yourself get distracted. Stay true to the vision of what you're here to do. And I want to add one other thing on that. Is one of my mottos in my business, Nina, is learn from others, trust yourself. And this is something I've held steadfast to. So even if somebody tells you what you should be doing, whether it's the right thing to say in a webinar or how to run a challenge or this and that, you've got to tune in. And this is where the mindset piece really comes in. Tune in to, what is right for me? I can't let somebody else decide what's right for me. So yes, you learn and you get mentors and coaches and invest in yourself, but ultimately we have to understand what's the right decisions for us.
Yes, and that's where self-belief and self-confidence come into it. If you have that self-belief and certain amount of confidence, you're able to say, okay, what's right for me? But when there isn't that confidence, then you're more likely to listen to other people and do what they ask you to do, even if it doesn't feel right to you. So it's really tuning in and listening to your gut to see whether this feels good to you.
And it's also working with a mentor who will honor who you are. And I learned that the hard way in the beginning of my business, because I worked with somebody who was looking at, so I told you I started my business when my kids were young, and I chose to kind of build my business a little more slowly. I didn't reach six figures to my third year, and I was okay with that. But he was kind of manipulating me in some ways and saying, oh, you're using your kids as an excuse or this and that. And I felt really judged. And I remember it like yesterday, because he said to me after our first contract ended, and he asked me to reinvest. And I actually ended up investing in a woman who he had trained. And he said to me, Cindy, why would you invest with the student when you can invest with the teacher? And I just said to him, well, then why would anyone invest in me? And it was very disempowering. And I really learned in that moment what not to do and to honor my clients and what they want to create and honor their value. So it's a lesson that I learned for myself that I can now share with my clients. So I think it's really important to choose mentors who will honor who you are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's absolutely fantastic advice. So in your journey as an entrepreneur, and we know journeys, they have their ups and they have their downs, it's not always smooth sailing. When things haven't gone according to plan, maybe you've had a setback and, something, it could even be an unexpected setback. You thought everything was in place, it was going to work, and maybe you didn't get the result that you wanted. How do you pick yourself up at that point and keep going?
Well, we have to okay, so we'll cry for a minute. Give ourselves to do that. But my whole motto in business is build on success. So I'll take a look back and say, okay, what went well with this? So as an example, the first time I ran an online challenge and I'd invested in a program to learn how to do it, I made I don't know, maybe one sale or something like that. It was not a success. So I'm like, okay, what went well? And where are things off? Where are things not aligned? And then rather than say, okay, that didn't work, let's go on to the next thing, I just looked at it and said, what went well in this? And what do I need to change to improve it? And I think that's an important mindset thing is, to build on our success at every step and continue to improve things rather than go, oh, that's a disaster, on to the next thing. I think it's really important that we do that.
Yeah, I really love that. And what came through there is that you asked yourself questions. And the questions you ask, the quality of the questions will really determine how successful you are.
That's a great point. And that's something that, again, choosing a mentor who will teach you why. You can't just that's why I have an issue with these really big programs where it's very cookie cutter. It's like, okay, follow this system, do these exact steps, don't do anything different, and then you'll have a great result. And chances are you won't, because you have to tailor it to you. And so that's why, always understand strategically, why am I doing this? Does this make sense for me? And maybe I need to tweak it a little bit based on my business or my strengths. And so that's, again, a mindset thing of taking a stand for yourself to say, it's okay to not follow the system, the guru. Take the best of it, but have the confidence to adapt it for you.
Yes. And I know with your group coaching programs, you work very much one-to-one with each client and make sure that it's very much custom made for that client and their needs. So yeah. This is really, I love these conversations about mindset because so much comes up and the quality of the questions you ask. So rather than thinking, well, that didn't work, I'm a loser, I'm never going to make it, what's the point? And all of going down that, really negative spiral thinking, which can happen so frequently. Mm-hmm. The questions that you ask yourself, what worked? And then you start seeing the evidence of things that have worked. And when and you can start seeing the successes you've had, even though that result didn't come through as you wanted. And that is so important, isn't it, for us to carry on? Because the quality of our thinking in those moments, which almost feel like a little bit of a crisis, that's where you can either give up and think, okay, this is how it is, it's never going to work for me. Or you think, I'm going to get much better at this. I'm going to get a great result without putting huge pressure on yourself. Those are crunch times, aren't they?
They are. They really are. And then understanding why too, that is so important. That's what you're saying, right? So can I tell one story where I completely doubted myself and I learned something? Is
Please, okay? I'm sure our listeners will get a lot of value.
Okay. So this is kind of a strange story, but I had won, there was a big star in the whole online marketing world. And I had somehow, because they were kind of in a newer stage of their online business, even though they've been very successful. Anyway, long story short, I won a place. I was one of their top 10 affiliate partners. And I was going to be in a room for the first time with some big people. And I was terrified. Like not just afraid, I was terrified to the point that I didn't even want to go. And then it started happening where I was getting engaged with more of these people, the stars of the online marketing world, and I was terrified. And I really decided I have to figure out what's scaring me so much. And so I was very fortunate. I had somebody that I worked with at the time who helped me, like you do, look back to our childhood and what specifically was scaring me about these people. And I understood because of I won't get into all the details, but because of my own childhood, how I was literally afraid they were out to get me. That I had a fear of powerful people being out to get me. And once I understood that, and I could say to myself, I am not a child anymore. There's nobody out to get me. And I came and I understood that. I was able to go connect with them and not be afraid. It wasn't just like an intimidation because they have 7-figure businesses and whatever, 8-figure businesses. It was a fear. And so I had to really understand the why behind it and realize that they're not out to get me.
Yes.
So that's where somebody like, sorry?
It's the awareness, which is so key. And you took the trouble to try and figure out why this was happening. You could have gone into that room and just felt the fear and had to deal with it in the moment. But because you dealt with it before you went into the room and you understood why this was happening, and isn't it funny, because it happened when you were a child, and yet we carry this fear into our adult lives. And most of the time, it's just causing trouble without us realizing. And you uncovered such a powerful limiting belief that powerful people are out to get me. Mm-hmm. And once you could see it for the actual story that it was, not based in reality at all, then you were able to go in there and I bet forge some very, very powerful partnerships.
Exactly. And and that's why the work you do is so important, because it's exactly it. It was a story I was telling myself. And we do this in all areas of our lives. It's not just in our business. A story I was telling myself based on something that happened as a child. And we do these things to protect ourselves when we're children. We need to protect ourselves as children. But as adults, we can choose how we respond in a more proactive and empowered way.
Absolutely. I think it's such a fantastic story that you shared there. And it's something that, if you don't deal with this stuff in any way, there are so many ways of dealing with this stuff. If you don't look at it, and it does truly limit your life, it limits your potential, it limits how successful you can be, how happy you can be. For me, business isn't just about how much money you've got in the bank, it's how fulfilling it is, how happy you are in your business. We're doing it every day. We should enjoy it, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. And the funny thing is that first event that I had won the place at, I went in, as you said, from a place of fear. I hadn't resolved the fears yet. And I probably didn't get out as much from that experience as I could have. And it was at that event that I met this woman who then helped me with the mindset piece. So I guess the lesson in that for me is do things even if you're afraid of them, but be aware of opportunities to figure out, why am I afraid, or why are things not going the way I want them? Take the time to really understand, whether it's from a marketing perspective, what's strategically off, or a mindset perspective, like where is my thinking coming from a place of fear. When we do that work, the results just, right? It just
it takes you to a completely different level, because most of the time, and strategy, I always say that, work on your mindset and work on your business as well, because you have to take action. There's no point just sitting there thinking about great things. You have to take the action. The two go hand in hand. But when you have both of those working together and really firing on both cylinders, that's when absolute magic happens. Mm-hmm. And it can be so much bigger than you ever thought it could be. And that's such an exciting thing about being an entrepreneur. We have no limits. When you're working for a corporation, then, your pay can be capped. But this is completely different, isn't it? We have such a wonderful opportunity with all the assets we have online to make some amazing, have an amazing business which helps so many people.
Exactly.
So what's your top mindset tip that you can share with entrepreneurs who are at that stage of their business where they know that so much more is possible for them, but somehow they're not achieving what they are capable of achieving?
It's about honoring yourself. It really is. It's about what it kind of, if I had to cap it up into just a couple of words, it's honoring yourself. It's honoring your judgment, honoring your value, honoring your voice, honoring your vision, honoring what you want to create and who you are, and building a business around that. My business is called Marketing from Within, because I really believe that when we understand our ideal client, we can build a profitable business. You know, you can be a smart marketer, but to really build a profitable business that you love, you have to know yourself. So it's asking those whys, and it's understanding who you are and what you want to create, and honoring that and trusting that. And that's something we have to constantly work at, because it's not, it's like this, right? It's this roller coaster sometimes. So we always have to go back and revisit it.
Absolutely. That's absolutely so true. And for any of our listeners and viewers who would like to find out more about you and your work, how can they do that?
Oh, wonderful. Well, they can certainly go to my website, marketingfromwithin.com. I have an authentic brand training where I get into, so not visual brand, but the authentic brand of who you really are and what your ideal clients really care about and how to match the two. So they can get that free training. And if they want to speak with me directly, they can go to talkwithcindy.com and schedule a call.
And I would really encourage everyone to check out Cindy's stuff, because you have so much integrity and you offer so much value, and you have this wonderful art of keeping it very simple, which in this very crowded, busy online world, I think simplicity is absolutely key. Takes you out of your overwhelm, and it helps you to see the wood for the trees and start taking some bigger action. So do check out Cindy's work. It's absolutely superb. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for being here. It's been, you've shared so much great content, and your experiences and how you got through those difficult times and how your mindsets helped you to achieve the success you have. I think it's been of huge value. And for everyone who's been listening and watching, thank you so much for being with us today. Until next time, bye-bye for now.